is Luis Seco, you probably know that, and I welcome you to the course. I have set up the course to be live cast on Zoom. I will do that every class, whether I'm here or not. There will be at least 2 classes that I'll have to be on Zoom myself. I will not be in Toronto. Okay, so those days I'll announce it. For sure, January 30th, I will not be here. I have to be in Germany. I'll tell you why. It's actually very relevant for what I'm talking about today. And maybe some other days. I'll let you know. I'll let you know in advance. Okay, so there will be a few times when we'll have to meet on Zoom, but every class will be live cast on Zoom, will be recorded, and it will be posted. Posted where? On YouTube. Okay. The first thing I want to do with this course is to tell you how I like to organize the course. In this post-pandemic world, everybody has developed a certain way of dealing with the reality around us. I have to say I started before the pandemic, so for me this is all very welcome, that now it's socially acceptable to use Zoom. I've been using Zoom for decades. No, not decades, many, many years. And in particular, I don't know how much of the course you know. I don't know how much about me you know. I will assume you know nothing. So today I want to spend a good part of the class giving you an introduction to the way I like to do things. And hopefully this will all be very useful to you. So the course has a website, which is in my own personal website. It's just easier for me to manage that way. You have it here. You can find it if you Google it. Okay, and on the website, the way my website is organized is, well, I have stuff about myself. I have papers. I have a number of things, and the courses that I teach are all here. I teach a lot of courses. I teach more than ever in my life. Okay, and there's a reason for that also, which I'll tell you today. This course is the one that appears under Mathematical Finance, and this course has actually has 2 websites to it. One is very general, and it's open to the public. And there's some information about the course. We're meeting here every Monday from 11 to 2. The Zoom link is there. The course outline is there. I'll talk about that a little bit later today. Okay, course outline, not interested in that right now. Every course has an outline. Of course, mine does too. The course has a top hat textbook. It's not mandatory, but my course is unusual, and over the years I like to listen to your complaints, not yours, I mean yours too, but the previous students also. The main complaint about this course is that there was no textbook, and as you will know by the end of the class, I can't have a textbook about what I'm doing here. I'll have to give you at least 5 or 6 or 10 different textbooks. Not practical, so I wrote my own. And it was easiest for me to just write it on Top Hat. So it's accessible on Top Hat. You have to pay something. I don't know how that works. It's not expensive, but the book is there. This year we'll be making major enhancements to that book, but I haven't done it yet. Okay, I have a busy year, but that's besides the point. And the information about the Top Hat course and the associated book is here. You just follow the link. Then some stuff about the course, which is just marketing material, some summary. The important thing for you would be in the reading room. Now, to access the reading room, you have to register on my website. The only reason I have it behind a password wall is so that the search engines cannot find it. A human is fairly, even robots log into my website, they're registered and then they log in. I can see that, okay? That's okay. But you will have to register and then you have access to this. You just have to use your email address and then I'll permission you, okay? I try to depermission the robots when I see them. I'm less concerned about that. You will all have access to that. And what's here? So what's here is a number of different things. First of all, you'll have the lecture notes of the different classes I'll be teaching. I cannot say that they are up to date as of today. The first one, yes, that's the one that I'm doing today. That one is there. Okay, they will be updated as I update these frequently, not only once a year when I teach this course. I update these fairly frequently. So the first one is what I'm lecturing on today. You have it all there. And same thing with all the others. There's also a number of YouTube playlists. Here I have included all of the courses that I've taught in the last 2 years that have a playlist. These playlists are unlisted, so you can't find them on YouTube. You can find them only through this link, okay? Then you can see the last 2 years, and you will see also this year's classes there. If you go to that playlist right now, you see that it's empty. It'll be populated when I produce the first video of today's class. It'll be there, and then you can see it. If you want to go back to the course, I know some people reached out to me, they have conflicts, they can't show up for the first hour or something. Everything is there. You can just go and look. And coupled with the PDFs that you have here, then that gives you a good way to go back either after class or in years to come. You said, oh, I want to remember what that was all about. And then you can always go back there. I plan to keep these things up there forever. That's how I like to organize my courses. And all the courses that you see that I teach, they're all the same. There will be one assignment. I'll talk about that later today. It's here. There will be a second assignment, and I'll explain the marking scheme for this course a little bit later. You can also get it there. I have created a Piazza space. I don't like Piazza, okay? But some of you do, so fine, I'll use it, okay? And I'll use it, I'll go there and you ask questions and I'll answer. I don't like it very much, but it's there. I also give you some links of things that may be useful, like for example, they say a website that contains bond price data. You will need it for assignment number 1. I list it there, you can see it there. And then I've included some other things that I consider interesting. Some interesting videos on YouTube, some interesting papers or documents that you can read. And I can put many more. If you go to, by the way, when you register for this course, you have access to all my other courses. And every course has a similar library, okay? So you may find some of the other courses of interest to you too. Go there. I have a lot of, in this case, I have only a few papers. I have a lot of books though. And for these books, when possible, I included a link to the U of T library, so you should be able to get the book directly on your machine when you click there. Okay? You may have to be registered with the Information Commons, and then you'll get these books. These are books which are relevant for what I'm talking about. But like I said, every one of these books is an entire course. And this course that I'm teaching you is a selection. It's an eclectic compilation of things which will be relevant. Which takes me to the intent of this course. What is this course? I'll explain this in more detail in my opening remarks, but this course is intended to be useful to you. I'm going to make the assumption that most of you are either going to get a job after this course, or you're going to go to graduate school after this course. That's my assumption. Okay? There's always a few people who are just curious about mathematical finance. They just show up here and then they go on with their lives in, algebraic geometry or chemistry or whatever they are doing. That's fine too. But I'm assuming that most of you are here because you have a professional interest in the field. So this course is organized to help you with that. I try to focus on things which are either educationally relevant for you, things that you need to know, and other things which are practical for you, things that will get you a job at a job interview. Okay, I expect all of you to be aware of the relevant themes in the financial sector today, so that when you go to a job interview, you can impress your interviewer because you know certain things that very few people know. Okay, how do I know? I'll tell you. Okay, but I have a pretty good grasp on what's going on in the financial sector. Okay, so this is how this course is organized, and of course, I can't have a textbook like that. That doesn't exist. A lot of these textbooks, they're real textbooks. They have a beginning, a middle, and an end. Okay, whereas my book, my course has many beginnings, many middles, and many ends. Why? Because the financial sector is expanding very, very fast, and that's what I will explain to you through this course. I've been teaching this for a long time, and I know it works. So that's basically the resources which are at your disposal. Okay, it's all there. And to access that, you have to register. If you try to access you call it the reading room. If you try to access the reading room without being registered, you'll be asked to register. Okay, and then you have access to it. All right. So these are the resources which are available to you. I know there's no one on Zoom today. Okay, I'll still act as if there are people on Zoom, so I'm going to stop this share and start a new share. Also, it helps me when I create the class video. So allow me to go through the Zoom gymnastics today. Okay, all right. So. Actually, no, let me not leave yet. Let me go back and talk about the course outline. Go back to the course. So again, my courses are there. Math Finance is here. So that's the course outline. Can you read it? Maybe you can. Okay, so all right. If you cannot read it, I can. So I'll just be talking about that. All right. So today, I'll give you an introduction to the financial industry. That's what I will do today. So I will be talking about the financial sector. I don't know what you know about the financial sector. I suspect some of you have done internships, so you have seen finance in action. I don't know if you know how mathematics plays a role in that. I will assume you know nothing. I'll just tell you today. That is what I will do today. And in doing that, I will end with a fairly challenging problem. And that's the problem of calculating the yield curve. I'll explain all of this today. That's my objective today. Okay, but the main objective of today's class is to give you an overview of the financial sector, how it has been evolving over the 100 years. I'll give you a historical perspective. I'll tell you what is relevant today, and I may even tell you what is not relevant today. Okay, some things which people think are relevant, they're not relevant anymore. After that, after today, what I will do is I will focus on pricing theory, which is frankly is not relevant for the financial sector today, not too relevant, but it is a very good foundation. It's one of these things that I teach you because you have to know. It is just good academically. And then very quickly, I will move to things which are more relevant. I'll spend quite a bit of time on risk management. I will focus on credit risk management, which is where most of the jobs are. But this year, in this class, for the first time, I'm going to include a section on climate risk. because this is the big area of employment right now. I'm not sure if you have heard the term ESG, for example, ESG. I'm curious who has heard ESG. Okay. ESG stands for environment, social governance. This is the social criteria which are driving financial markets. Very shocked to know that many financial companies today are directed to use their dollars in a responsible manner. It's happening. It's not a dream. It's actually happening. Just to give you an idea, the fund flows for that movement are in excess of 40 trillion right now. That's bigger than the US economy. And there's a lot of jobs on ESG, a lot of jobs. On ESG related themes, even the term ESG is getting old. There's a lot. So I will include half a lecture on that as part of my risk management. But today still credit risk management is the area that maybe employs most people, so I'll be spending time on that. And then I'll move to investments, and I will be giving 2 lectures on investments because the investment sector, or properly speaking, the asset management sector or subsector within the financial sector is, for years now, has become very sophisticated, and it is welcoming people like you. Okay. For example, in Canada, I'm not sure you know, but we have some of the best pension plans in the world. To young people like you, the word pension plan may sound like this is for older people. It turns out that the pension plans, especially the Canadian ones, are managed by more and more by people with a mathematical background. Ontario Teachers Pension, Canada Pension Plan, OMERS, CPP, HOOP, IMCO. These are big employers for people like you. And perhaps the mutual fund industry is something which is not at your level, is something different. But even that industry, more and more, they're getting sophisticated because artificial intelligence is now going everywhere. Okay? So the asset management sector is, for you, given that you're in Toronto, perhaps more relevant than banking. And I will spend 2 weeks talking about that. And then I will end, this course will end with something that usually comes as a surprise to the students in this course. And that is with one lecture on, I don't know how to call it, communication skills, business skills. I like to call it human skills. No one knows what that means, I do. And the reason is that if you want to have a successful career, this is the most important thing that you have to know. So I will end, I consider, believe it or not, I consider the last lecture of this course the one that will be perhaps most relevant to you. Okay? And that's how this course will end on April 3rd. That's the outline. That's what the course is about. Okay, now you, with the outline, I have to hide that. For that, I have to go into the marking scheme for this course. So this, today I'm going to show you one video. I like to show videos in my class. Okay, today I'll show you one video, and I hope that video convinces you of how little I care for marks. I know you care, and there has to be a marking scheme. That's a marking scheme there. It's given by an algorithm. The algorithm is based on a few things. First of all, just about every week, I'll give you a quiz. The quiz will be given to you on Quarkus, and you do it. And every quiz will be 5 marks for you. There'll be 10. That's 50%. 50% of your mark is going to be 10 quizzes that you will do. Then there's going to be 2 assignments. Each assignment will be 20%. The assignments are really useful. I tell people, when you write your CV, write what you did in your 2 assignments as an accomplishment, because they are, you will see. Okay, very few people, even few professionals will know how to do those two assignments. You will. Okay, so each of them will count for 20% of your final mark. And then there's a class participation mark of 10%. How do I measure that? I don't know. I have the option to measure that in any way I want. But if you want, now it's when I want you to start to understand how I like to teach my courses. I think a reasonable objective for you in this course, for most of you for sure, is that at the end of the course, I know your name. Why is that relevant? Well, I presume that several of you, in fact, I would presume many of you, would probably ask for a letter of recommendation from me. It happens every year. How can I write a letter for you if I don't know your name? You can try to remind me who you were, but if you have to remind me who you were, you're already behind, right? So I encourage you to participate. And when you participate, feel free to tell me your name. And then maybe I'll remember, okay? It was easier on Zoom because I have a record of whatever people said on the chat. That was easier. Now without Zoom, I need to remember who you were. But I do want to encourage you to participate. So I allocated a 10% as something that I will do as an item, almost gratitude, if you participate and if I end up learning your name. Okay. Now, to make the formula more interesting, there is, as I mentioned to you, a Top Hat textbook. The Top Hat textbook contains exercises, and you get a mark for that. But I don't want to make it compulsory. If you want to do it, great. If not, no problem. So if you do the Top Hat, I will give you 20% of that. And if you don't, I don't. So I take the max of those two numbers. That's the algorithm for my marking scheme. You all have a mathematical background. You have no difficulty understanding that formula. If you do, you're probably in the wrong course. All right? I don't expect you to understand it right now. You may have to study it, and after half an hour, you'll get it. But frankly, if I was you, I would spend zero time trying to understand the marking scheme. I don't think it's relevant. And I don't think you came here for that marking scheme. Anyway. Okay? Well, at the end of this class, I think you'll understand that better. Okay, I think this is all I wanted to say in terms of the course, all about the course. Do you have any questions? Yes?
You have office hours?
Oh, your name? Okay. So yes is yes and no. You're going to have office hours every Tuesday and every Thursday. It's announced somewhere, I forget, either on the website or on the course outline. Every Tuesday, every Thursday at 7 p.m. on Zoom. Every Tuesday, every Thursday. The TA is doing that. The Tongfei Cho, very good guy. So he's going to do the office hours. If you need to talk to me, you can talk to me. Just send me an email and book an appointment. Okay, I will book an appointment as I book all my other appointments. I'm very busy. I'm sorry to say. I usually my days are booked from early in the morning until late at night, and I have to go from one meeting to the other very quickly. By the way, today, right at 2, I have a meeting at 100 College, so I have to run. I don't have time to answer questions. I'll have to collect all my material very quickly and then just run. That's what I do. I run. Okay, but if you need to talk to me, if the TA is not enough for whatever reason, you have to have a good reason. Sure, send me an email, and I will respond. It's rare that I can respond to an email the same day. It's rare, but there's a probability. Okay, so write to me. My email is very public. It's everywhere. Okay, it's also on the course outline and it's on my website. So, reach out to me. And if you need me urgently, call me. My phone number is listed on my website. It's public. You can call me. My cell phone number. It's amazing. My cell phone number has been posted on my website for years. No one calls me. Okay, so it's okay, which is great. That's why I posted. So if you have to call me. It's very unlikely I'll pick up. I'll probably be in a meeting. But if I can pick up, I will pick up. All right. Good. Oh, okay. So if there are no more questions, then I'm going to. That's the website. I'm going to shut down this website. I'm going to go into the actual lecture. So this is about the course, what to expect. All right. Software packets got to the bank, and then in the bank, someone press return, and something happens. That's remarkable. That's very, very difficult. So that's what we did, and we continue to do that. Right now at the Risk Lab, I have maybe 30 students, and now we have students from all over the world. Okay, it's become a very nice thing. I don't know, maybe some of you are there. I cannot recognize you. Maybe you are there. I don't know. Okay, but I did that in 1996, and it was very good. It still is very good. Very quickly after that, I helped create the Masters in Mathematical Finance. I'm the director of that program now. Okay, some of you may be interested in applying to MMF. Well, this course is very good preparation for that. It's like MMF in 36 hours. Okay, that's what this course is. So I've been doing that I've been director only since 2007. Okay, but the program has been around since 1988, and that is. So I'm fairly busy with my Risk Lab group. I have 30 students. We write papers, we meet, we discuss. I'm very busy with the Masters in Mathematical Finance also, okay? I want you to understand how busy I am also, okay? A company called Sigma was created in 1999. This was a spin-off of research I did at the Risk Lab. A spin-off company is when you do research in the university and said, this can become a company, you can commercialize this. So that happened. It was a company, Sigma. It's a company that was around, I just closed it. And it was an asset management company. It's a company that was managing money, essentially for Canadian pensions. We managed about $1 billion for many, many years. And that for me was a great way to learn how the asset management sector works. But then, of course, not only the asset management sector, when you manage so much money, you are a very good client of the banks. So you know the banking sector very well because you're a big client of the banks. And so on and so forth. That gave me a very good view into the financial sector and how it has been evolving and what it's doing now. Okay. Now, so this company has been closed now. I don't manage money right now. And it's been replaced by actually two companies. One is the FIT Center, Finance, Innovation and Technology Center. It's a Canadian company. And what we do here is we're trying to do the new CFA. You know the CFA? Well, the CFA is getting very obsolete, so we're doing the new one. It's called the FIT certificate. And we're starting January 23rd. Okay, so we're starting this month. It's the first group of, it's a great, very, very cool initiative. Very, very cool initiative. We'll see if we become as big or even bigger than the CFA, but that's what I'm doing right now. Okay, if you go to the website, fit-center.com, I think, you will see all about that. Okay, so actually it's about to be launched. So I do that, and I'm very busy with that. And also, and today a new company has been created. It's called Jump, and this company is the following thing you should know. For years, I've been trying to think what the university of the future should look like. Okay, so this year, 2022, I was invited to present at Davos, the World Economic Forum. Have you heard of that? Some of you may know the World Economic Forum, Davos. So I was invited, and I presented that concept. I call it the metaversity. Okay? And there was a company in the audience who liked it very much, very similar to the way Risk Club was done in 1996. So now we're making an attempt at creating the metaversity. Okay? And this company was actually created today. I just got an email about an hour ago. And so we'll see. So I'm switching from managing money back into the university business. We'll see where that goes. So there are two companies that I'm managing now in that space, in the educational space. And so this is part of the reason why I'm busy. For example, if you go to my website, I'm not going to share this on Zoom. If you go to my website, actually, this is an event that's happening, I think, on Friday. And I don't have the link yet. I have to create the link, but this is some of the things that are happening today. This is a presentation on the future of liquid fuels. Let me tell you what this is. This is part of my metaversity, by the way. Okay. It's given by Alain Mathurin, who is the communications director of Fuels Europe. This is the consortium of all of the oil producers in the European market. So Total, you may know that company, French company. Aramco, you know Aramco, the Saudi company. They're all members. And one of the big projects they have is to create liquid fuels that have a low carbon footprint. Emissions is a big problem. All of these things about climate risk, and everything boils down to one molecule, CO2. And the idea is to reorganize the way we do everything so that the CO2 footprint becomes zero. Okay. So this will be discussed on Friday. This is the kinds of things that I do, and that's why I'm busy. All right. So this will be this person is in Brussels, and he will be speaking on Teams or something. So, but sometimes I have to be there. And on the 30th of January, I have to be in Germany for something related to this. Okay, I have a very big project on sustainability. It's in fact perhaps of all of the things that I'm doing, it's perhaps the most relevant one. Sustainability. I'll be saying a few things about that also today, why that matters, why that's important. Okay, so we're gonna watch. We'll be taking a break at some point, don't worry, okay? We'll be taking a break. I'll need it more than you, so I will not forget. Okay. But first I want to do something substantial before I go there. All right, so the next thing I have here is a video. I'm gonna show you the video, and maybe we take a break after that. This video, I don't know that the sound is going to work. Something tells me that the HDMI is not going into this computer. And I want you to hear this video. I'll tell you what the video is about. This person that you see there, Benjamin Zander is his name. He is the conductor of the Boston Philharmonic. I'm not sure if you know much about music or even if you know this guy. He's a remarkable guy in many, many ways. He has many lectures on leadership, communication. He's very, very good. And I know him very well. And in particular, it's a 15-minute segment that talks about the A student. You will see, okay? And when I saw that, it very well reflects how I see education and how I actually see my course. So I think after these 15 minutes of listening to Benjamin Zander, you will understand a little bit better what awaits you in this course.
Benjamin Zander has conducted the Boston Philharmonic Orchestra for 20 years. He is also artistic director of the music program at Walnut Hill, a high school for the performing arts in Boston. As a writer, he co-authored The Art of Possibility, Transforming Professional and Personal Life. He talked to head teachers at a conference organised by the National College of School Leadership.
I'm a teacher like you. I teach at the conservatory in Boston. I have a class on Friday afternoon. People come from all over the world and they're excited to be there and they're eager to learn, you know. But what's really going on, they're saying, am I better than her? Am I better than him? I know I'm better than her. I don't think I'll ever be as good as him. I hope I can be as good as her. They're constantly comparing and they're measuring. And when they come out to play, let's say the violin, it looks as though there's one person playing the violin, right? There are two people. There's the person who's playing the violin, and then there's another person standing behind the person who's playing the violin, whispering in his ear, "You haven't practiced enough." Do you know how many people play this piece better than you do? That difficult passage, you missed it the last time. It's coming right up. You're going to miss it again. That's the voice in the head. And if anybody's saying, what does he mean, a voice in the head? What's he talking about, a voice in the head? That's the voice I mean. Took a moment for you to hear it, right? But that voice keeps talking and talking and talking, and it never stops. You know, sometimes it talks so loudly that it drowns out the music. So my job is to get hold of that voice. And this is how it works. I do it each year. I come into my class at the beginning of the year, and there are about 40 students in my class, and I say, after a little bit of housekeeping, I say, your grade for the year is an A. You're an A. That's your grade. And there's one condition. The condition is that they have to write me a letter in the first 2 weeks of the class, of the year. The letter must be dated the following May, when the class ends. So the date at the top is May 2000 of the next year. And then the letter must begin with these words, "Dear Mr. Zander, I got my A because." Then they have to write a letter describing who they will have become by the following May to justify this extraordinary grade. And I tell them to fall passionately in love with the person they're describing in the letter. And they do. They write about who they would be, who they could be, who they see themselves as if only that damn voice would stop telling them they can't do it. When I come into class, the person I teach is the person that they have described in their letter. You see, I only take A students. Now, there are a few people looking very concerned and saying, how does he do that? Well, the answer is very simple. You can give an A to anybody. You can give an A to a waitress in a restaurant, to a taxi driver. You can give an A to the other drivers when you're driving in traffic. You can give an A to your mother-in-law. You can give an A to your boss. You can give an A to anybody. What happens when you give an A is that the relationship is transformed. This is hard for teachers. I know this is very, very hard. I addressed a group of teachers earlier this year, and one of them came up to me afterwards and said, I like this giving an A. It's sweet, he said. But he said, but it doesn't make, you don't know the students. You don't know them. You don't know their work. So I imagine as the year progresses and you find out that some of them are quite mediocre, I imagine you modify the grade, right? I said, no. And then I tell them about this young girl I met. She's about 15. I said, what's your name? She said, Joy. I said, I beg your pardon? She said, Joy. Now, should her parents modify her name? No, because we don't give children a name as an expectation to live up to. We give children a name as a possibility to live into. The person who understood this perfectly was Michelangelo, and I'm sure you've heard this beautiful thing, but it bears repeating. Somebody asked Michelangelo about sculpting, and he said, oh, sculpting is easy, because you have a piece of marble. Inside the piece of marble is a beautiful statue. All you need is a hammer and a chisel just to get rid of all the stone that's in the way. And then that's actually a theory of education. It's, of course, not the one we use. The one we use, we're up here, the students are down here, and they try to get up and they do their homework and they work hard and they study and they work as hard as they can, and this is as far as they get. This is the gap between their achievement and our standards. And of course they're very manipulative because they know what we want to hear so they can get up a little higher. Michelangelo's model is totally different. It's eye to eye. We each have a hammer and a chisel and we're working to get rid of all that stone that's in the way of that beautiful statue. It's a totally different world. It came home to me very powerfully one day. This was the first year I'd ever done this with the A, and I was really excited about it. And I came into class, and I said to all the class were there, and I said, what does it feel like to get an A in the first class of the year? I mean, you haven't done anything, you get an A. What does that feel like? To my amazement, one of the Asian students put up his hand like that. Forgive me for my attempt at his accent. He said, in Taiwan, he said, I was number 68 out of 70 students. I come to Boston, Mr. Zander says I'm an A. It's very confusing, he said. I am number 68 out of 70. Mr. Zander says I'm an A, but I am number 68. I walked 3 weeks, very confused. Then one day I discover much happier A than number 68. I decide I'm an A. I call that cosmic laughter. That's not head teacher's laughter, that's cosmic laughter. Because what you're laughing at is the realization, of course, that the A is invented, the 68 is invented. We might as well invent something that lights up our life and the life of the people around us. I don't know if you know this, but in America, in our music schools, we have about half our students from Asia. From China and Japan and Korea and Taiwan and Singapore and all these places. And they play fantastically well. They're great. They win the competitions, but they don't speak up in class. And I found out why. I actually asked them. I said, what is this about? And they explained to me. They said, Mr. Zander, you have to understand, in Asia, it's very important to be right. The teacher is always right. And the students try to be right. And as one of these young ladies said, the best way to be right is not to say anything, then you won't be wrong. Now, I believe the exact opposite, which is you cannot learn anything unless you make a mistake. So I tell my students, when you make a mistake, celebrate. And the way to celebrate is like this. How fascinating. It's actually quite difficult. Try it out on the golf course next time you're out. You know why it's difficult is because when we make a mistake, we tend to pull down, the body pull down. Notice the next time you make a mistake, the body pulls down. Now, instead, when it pulls down, you go, how fascinating. It's like this. It's difficult to do, you know. We had a conference of leaders of the music world, you know, heads of orchestras and schools and opera houses and so on. And we had a 3-day conference. And there was a lot of what I call downward spiral speaking. Now, I don't know what the head teacher's downward spirals are, but I'll tell you some of the musical downward spirals. The little old ladies who like classical music, they're all dying, so there's not going to be an audience. The children don't learn instruments anymore. All they do is watch MTV, so they're not going to grow up liking classical music. No? And the National Endowment of the Arts is not supporting, and the foundations aren't supporting the arts the way they used to, so we're going to run out of funds. By the end of the second day, people were walking around the corridor in the hotel like this. Because, you know, everywhere there's downward spiral. You can't get it right. I was looking at the Times this morning, and I thought of bringing it in and showing you how many columns in the Times are downward spirals. It's amazing. Every column is a downward spiral. Of course, the stock market, that's a downward spiral. Downward spiral. Also upward spiral. Upward spiral and downward spiral are actually the same thing. Because wherever you have a winner and a loser, you automatically have a downward spiral. So, of course, sports is full of downward spiral, but it doesn't matter in sports because we all go out for a beer afterwards. Yeah. But our educational system is based on a downward spiral because there's nowhere to go from an A but down. So we shouldn't be surprised if our kids look anxious. Sometimes it seems as though there's nothing but downward spiral, which of course isn't true, which is why I asked for another flip chart. Now over here we have possibility, the world of possibility, the realm of possibility, and this is where the vision is. And vision is very important. Vision is really important because, you know, people get confused about vision. They say, oh, so our vision is to be number one. No, that's a goal. Vision, to be a vision, has to be for everybody. Everybody. At this conference, somebody stood up in front of the whole group and said, 3% of the population likes classical music. If we could move it to 4%, our problem would be over. I say everybody loves classical music, they just haven't found out about it yet. How would you walk? How would you talk? How would you be if you thought 3% of the population likes classical music? If only we could. How would you talk? How would you walk? How would you be if you thought everybody loves classical music? They just haven't found out about it. These two worlds are totally different worlds. I had an amazing discovery. This is a really big deal for me. I was 45. I'd been conducting for over 20 years, and suddenly one day I had this kind of road to Damascus event. Eureka! I realized the conductor of an orchestra doesn't make a sound. My picture appears on the front of the CD. But the conductor doesn't make a sound. He depends for his power on his ability to make other people powerful. And when that happened, it changed everything. People in my orchestra said, What happened to you, Ben? What happened? That was what happened. I realized my job was to awaken possibility in other people. Because I wanted to know whether I was doing that. And you know how you find out? You look at their eyes. If their eyes are shining, you know you're doing it. You could light up a village with this guy's eyes. If the eyes are shining, you know you're doing it. If the eyes are not shining, you get to ask a question. Who am I being that my player's eyes are not shining? We can do that with our children too. Who am I being that my children's eyes are not shining? Now over here, we have goals. Have you noticed how goals tend to be rather grim? We have a goal. It's a rather grim pursuit. We have to make the goal. Now over here, you can have a goal as part of the vision. By all means, you have a goal, and if you make the goal, great, and if you don't, how fascinating. Because you know, we all know why we have goals. Why do we have goals? To make our eyes shine, that's all. That's the reason we have a goal. So if the goal posts are too close together, you can't score. If they're too far apart, it's too easy. So if it's not working, the eyes aren't shining, move the goalposts. You know, that's the thing. Now, over here you have the words you should, you ought, you need, and you must. Try those out on your children and see if their eyes shine. Over here we have things like, how about, what if, what are we looking for? What's next? Over here, you see, it's totally different language, totally different. Now, over here, you have blame and fault and threat. And over here, requests and apologies, totally different. This is where we put people down and also put people up. Over here, everybody gets an A. It's a totally different world. Now, the leader, the new leader, is the one who, first of all, can distinguish the downward spiral and then has the power to take people from there over here to radiating possibility, and anybody can do it. Anybody, an 8-year-old child can do it. Anybody can do it. There's a key. There's a key to the kingdom of possibility. I'm going to give you the key to the kingdom of possibility right now. Okay, so this is the story. It always comes in a story. Okay, the story is this. 2 prime ministers were sitting in a room, and they had a conversation about affairs of state, you know, the way prime ministers do. And suddenly the door bursts open, and a man comes in a state of apoplectic upset. He's just like this and it's making so much noise and racket and carries on. Of course, they stop their conversation. And the resident prime minister says, Peter, please remember rule number 6. Immediately, Peter's restored to complete calm. He bows, he apologizes, and he walks out of the room. They go back to their conversation. 20 minutes later, the door bursts open again. A woman comes in. She's hysterical, and her hair is flying, and she's mascara's running. Everything's a mess. And shouting again. And again, the prime minister says, Maria, please remember rule number 6. Immediately, she bows, she apologizes, she walks out of the room. And then 20 minutes later, it happens for the third time. The third time, the visiting prime minister says, my dear colleague, he says, this is astonishing. He said, I don't believe it. 3 people have come into this room out of control. And you just say rule number 6. Would you be willing to share what this rule number 6 is? He said, oh, it's rule number 6, very simple. Don't take yourself so goddamn seriously. He says, oh, that's a wonderful rule. What, may I ask, are the other rules? There aren't any. Cosmic laughter. Pretty tentative, I must say. Now, it comes down to 3 things. 3 things. 1, it's all invented. You've got to get that. It's all invented. 2, standing in possibility. And 3, rule number 6. That's it. Simple.
All right, so I think that's a good way to tell you how I plan this course to be. Okay, so on that note, we're going to take a break, 15-minute break, and when we come back, that's what I'll be talking about. Okay, 15 minutes. All right, so now we start talking about the subject matter of the course. And what I'm going to do in the next hour is give you a description of the financial markets. Again, I'll assume you know nothing. If you think that this is too boring, you already know it, sure. Okay. But when we talk about the financial sector, we're talking about 5 possible things. And I have here listed the 5 subsectors or the 5 branches of the financial sector. The first is banking. This one is the one which is best known. but also very often misunderstood by students. What's the banking business? What does a bank do?
Allocate money.
What a bank does is the bank takes your money and then lends the money to someone else, and they collect the spread. That's it. That's the banking business. People think that banks do trading and things like that. Do banks do trading?
Investment bank?
Sometimes. Well, what happens is that if you give them your money until they lend it to someone else, then they may do something with it. But typically, they don't like to do trading with that money. In fact, they may not even be allowed to do that. What banks have, and this is oftentimes misunderstood, banks have something called prop desks. What is a prop desk? You know what a prop desk is?
Proprietary.
You have to speak very, very loud because it's proprietary trade, yes, and that's when the banks use their own money to do whatever they want with it, in particular to trade and make money with it. You see, and this is a distinction here. When the banks give you a loan, who has a loan with a bank here? I have a loan. I have many loans. I have a mortgage, and okay, some of you may have a student loan. The money they give you, who does that money belong to? Is that the bank's money or someone else's money? It's someone else's money that is being given to the bank, and they are allowed to lend it to you. The bank also has their own money, which is money they... How does the bank make money? Just speak, don't raise your hand. Just interest rates, yes. Or fees, for example, right? Fees. You use your credit card, the bank collects money. You use your ATM card, the bank collects money. You do any transfer, the bank. So the banking business is a very simple business. They take money and they lend it and they collect the spread, or they do a service to you and they collect a fee, right? So where is the trading in all of that? Why would a bank need someone like you to work at a bank? Am I trying to discourage you from applying for a job at a bank? No, I'm not trying to discourage you. I'm just trying to tell you that most of the employees in the bank don't need to be like you, okay? If a bank has 20,000 employees, how many of them do you think will need to know math beyond simple addition and maybe multiplication? No subtraction, no division. How many? Very few, very few, okay? I'm not trying to discourage you. I want to give you a very realistic view. We're going to understand all of this, but I want to start there. The bank's main business is to either charge fees when you use your ATM or do an e-transfer, or to collect the spread. You put your savings money, they give you a 1% and they think it's a big deal, and then they give me a mortgage for 7%. And they collect 6%. That's the main business of a bank. How is that? How are you relevant there? We'll answer that question, but I want you to think. How are you relevant in a business like that? Let me continue. Insurance. What's the insurance business? What do insurance companies do? This is better understood. What do insurance companies do? Just speak. Don't.
Like free risk.
Insurance company, what they do is they collect your money, and then they say, if something happens, call me. But they collect your money. It's called premium. Okay, so the insurance business, they collect premium. And then something happens, oh, your house burned, really? Oh, okay, I'll have to pay you then. But they do, they collect money. Why would an insurance company need someone like you? Can you prevent fires? Or?
Determine risk.
Yes. So for example, who here is studying actuarial science? You are. Okay, so they need you. They need 3 people here. because that's what they do, right? Fire insurance, life insurance is a big one. Life insurance is a big one. How long do people live? Right? If I give you life insurance, how much will I charge you? I need to know how much you're going to live. So, right? So that seems to be already answered in the insurance career. This course is not part of the insurance program, sorry, of the actuarial science program. So why would they need someone like you? Well, they need someone like you because insurance companies, they collect money from you now, and they'll pay you much, much, much later, like when you die, or when your house burns, or when you have a car accident, right? That means that insurance companies are very big pools of money waiting to be paid out to other people. But that money needs to be invested. So an insurance company is essentially, for the purposes of interest to you, it's an investment company. You can ignore, most of you can ignore the rest of the business of the insurance company. The three of you who are in actuarial science, no, you are in the liability side of the insurance company, right? But the others, they may need you because they need to invest, and investing is difficult, as we will see in this course. That's the insurance company. The asset management company. What is an asset management company? Maybe you've never heard this term before. Asset management company is someone that manages assets. What are assets? Assets could be property. Like an asset management company is, you can manage a building, and then you're in the asset management business. Most of the asset management companies, they manage assets, which is liquid asset, which is cash, money. Pension plans, for example. We're in Canada, we're in Toronto. Toronto is the home to some of the biggest and best pension plans, many of whom are looking for people like you. Why are they looking for someone like you? Why does an asset management company need someone like you? Because they have the same problem as the insurance company. Pension plans, for example, I give them money every month. You give them money every month too. You have your CPP premium, very likely in your paycheck, right? Even if it's $5 or $200, it doesn't matter. You give money to Canada Pension Plan because that money, when you retire, will be paid to you. But that money, if you do nothing with it, it's going to lose its value very quickly, especially now with high inflation. So someone needs to manage that to ensure that the money that you give will be significant to you when you retire. And that's where they need someone like you. Okay? In fact, of the three companies we've talked about, banking, insurance, and asset management, I would say the one that needs you the most is the asset management companies.
Is there restriction on what kind of trade that you should?
Very good question. Very good question. In fact, I'll talk about regulation also today a little bit. Yes. Let me answer your question in 2 minutes. Make sure that I do, okay? Because it has to do with the second column. I'll go to the second column, okay? So I'll answer your question. Then the fourth part of the business sector is what are called the payment systems. Visa, MasterCard, American Express, for example, right? WeChat, Alipay, Apple Pay. These are all payment systems. What do you think? Do you have a chance of working there? Do they need you there? Are you attracted in that space? Fraud detection, yes. Yes, that's. So, can you help them with fraud detection?
Yeah, I know people who use machine learning algorithms.
Very good. That's exactly right. That's exactly it. So, so you gave me the answer I was going to give in a few minutes after I finished that table. Okay, this is very important. I want you to be aware of this. So let me continue. By the way, you've heard of blockchains, yes? Okay, well, blockchain is one of the nascent technologies that are being used to do a lot of these. Yeah. So yes, anybody likes blockchains here? You like blockchains? How can you not, right? Everybody likes blockchains. So yes, it is an example of what is happening. So this table that I have here, 20 years ago and 5 years from now will be very different. And this is what I want you to understand. I want you to be in the know. So, for example, what you just said about fraud detection, 20 years ago, no one would know what you're talking about. They will think you're crazy, right? Or you're, a fiction writer. But now it's actually happening. It's real, right? Let's go to the last one. Services, financial services. That includes consulting companies, for example. Deloitte, KPMG, Pricewaterhouse. What do they do? Accounting firms, audit firms. What do they do? Essentially, they count money. They count money, okay? So these are the different businesses that exist in the financial sector. So now if we try to find what are the opportunities for someone like you to work there, that's what I want to do now, then we need to think in those terms. And why do you need to know about the opportunities? Because I guess most of you are beginning your career, right? You want to go in the right direction. You don't want to go backwards, right? That's something that I tell all the students. Look for the jobs that exist 10 years from now. Don't look for the jobs that existed 10 years ago. They probably don't exist. Okay? So to understand the jobs, let's look at the risks. What is the what risks do banks have? People think that banks have a risk that they invest money and they lose it. We already saw that banks don't really invest money, right? Except prop desk. And what is the biggest risk a bank has?
Like a bank run? Like two people try to withdraw?
Yes, but those are very rare. They happened in 1929 and they haven't really happened since. And now they are protected by the central governments. And so a bank run is great in the movies, and you probably watched It's a Wonderful Life, at Christmas. But it's not really the big risk that banks have now.
People won't give back the money that the bank lent.
Default. Default is the big risk that banks have. They gave me a mortgage, how do they know I'm going to pay them back? They gave you a student loan, how do they know you're going to pay them back? Right? Okay. So default is a big risk for the bank, and they need people like you for that. Now, we're going to do 2 lectures on credit risk, which is what that's all about. 2, not 1, but 2. It's so important, many jobs in that space. And you will see in those lectures why they need people like you, because this is something very sophisticated, and there's going to be models, and you're required to know differential equations, and who knows. But the thing is, and I'm not teaching you this, but the thing is that now a lot of these default theories, these credit theories, they're exercises in big data. That's why the banks are now so hungry for data. They want to know everything about you. Okay, how much you sleep, where do you buy, where do you travel? Because they can mine that information and get a better sense of your likelihood to default. And then they can increase their business, right? Default is the risk they take. But every time you take a risk, you can take a risk for 2 reasons. You can take a risk because you don't have a choice, or you can take a risk because you're compensated for that. And banks are compensated for the default risk. How are they compensated for that? That's why you give them money, they give you 1%, but I ask for a mortgage and they charge me 7%. That 6% differential is because I may not pay. Okay? So the reason banks would like people like you is because with your knowledge, they can get a better handle of the risks they take and therefore make the company more profitable. That's why default is such a big area for banks, and that's why I spent 2 weeks on default in this course. Insurance. What's the big risk for insurance companies?
That there's a lot of claims and they don't have sufficient service.
Yeah, so events, okay? So now there's a big freeze out in Toronto, many houses, they collapse, and then you have to pay. There's not very much that your skill sets can do there, except there, things are changing too. You see, the biggest issue that insurance companies have today is about 50% of the premia worldwide for insurance companies come from car insurance. Okay? Think for a minute what will happen if cars drive themselves. What will happen if cars drive themselves?
People will need to buy cars.
You don't need a car. You can share a car. And we need a lot less cars, right? My car is now parked in the Mars building, waiting for me to go and pick it up. It's the stupidest thing, right? Someone else could be using my car. And then I'm done, I say, car, come pick me up, and then picks me up, like in the old movies from the 70s, right? Then if 50% of the worldwide premia for insurance companies are going down the route of self-driving cars, then what's their new business? What are some of the new businesses that insurance companies are doing?
Or maybe the self-driving car company to buy the insurance.
Well, the thing is that a self-driving car company doesn't need insurance. They are bigger than the insurance company, right? You buy insurance when you cannot pay the premium. When you cannot pay the claim, right? But if you can pay the claim, you're not going to give that business to the insurance company, right? It's only if you're small you want to buy insurance. If you're big, no. So the big car companies are not going to buy insurance. And they're going to lobby the governments to not be forced to buy insurance because they are bigger than insurance companies. Why would they, right? So the insurance business is going away. What are they doing? Have you heard of this insurance company? It's in Australia. They will insure anything you take a picture of. You take a picture of your bicycle, and within a few seconds, they'll give you insurance for that. It's all AI driven. Big data analysis is changing all of that. It's changing the insurance business too. Okay? You see a theme now, right? For banks, their analysis of default is being disrupted by their ability to have a lot of data. Insurance companies, what's their data? Is the picture that you send them. And now they have a database of pictures and they know how to insure those things. And very, very soon they will have a history. And the insurance sector could easily change. And this could become more profitable than car insurance. So they're looking for new businesses for which data analysis is key, right?
Let's have a question.
Yes.
So you just said, so if you take a picture of this water bottle and the insurance company will offer me insurance on this, then why would I want to pay for this?
That's a different question. Okay? I mean, now this becomes a business discussion, right? Why would you, if I'm the insurance company, and of course, being a human, not being a machine, but if you send me a picture of your water bottle and you want insurance for that, and you tell me that water bottle is $5, I would probably say I'm not interested. It's not worth it, right? What will I charge you for that? 0.01 cents? No, just to notify you by letter or something, it costs me more than that. Maybe I'll say no. So I don't think that we're going to get to that. Although we may, who knows, right? That's possible. Especially if you have a very efficient decentralized system. If you have a good blockchain-based system where you can pay in a different way, which is more effective than cash, then maybe I will do it, right? But this is intended for other things, like you take a picture of a painting or a picture of a bicycle is very typical. You take a picture of a bicycle and they'll insure that. Why would they do that? Because, well, I don't know much about insurance, but some people who know, they figure out a way to make money, right? So, let me go to the asset management company. By the way, someone during the break asked me a question about my FIT certificate, and I said I'll answer. Okay, I want to say this and then I'll answer, because then you'll understand why we're doing this, right? Why the CFA, I think, needs a replacement. You will see. So I'll finish this and then I'll answer your question. I wanted to answer your question so everybody can hear it, because maybe other people are interested. But this is what's driving our asset management. Okay, what is the biggest risk that an asset management firm has? Who can give me examples of asset management firms? Inflation? No, that's a risk for the people who are clients of the asset management company, but not for the asset management company. How does an asset management company make money? Sorry, I interrupted you.
Avoid taxes.
Avoid? Oh, that could be. That could be. Yes, that could be. Okay, so actually, the legal risk is their biggest risk, and what you just said is one example of that, right? You do something that you were not authorized to do. Like someone asked me earlier, and I'll give you the answer, can pension plans do whatever they want? The answer is no. For example, for years, they couldn't buy derivatives. Then finally, they convinced the pension regulators that they have to allow them to buy derivatives. The argument they used is that the pension plans were almost forced to invest in the US, because Canada is a very small country. And if you invest in the US, then you need to hedge the currency exposure, right? How can you hedge the currency exposure without derivatives? Then the regulator said, oh, yes, you're right, okay. And then they allowed them to do derivatives. Who was the pension plan that convinced the regulators to do this? The Ontario Teachers' Pension Plan. And then the entire Canadian pension system could buy derivatives. And now, because they can buy derivatives, they need people like you who know derivatives. Sorry, who will know derivatives 3 weeks from now, right? See, everything starts to click into place, right? So the biggest risk they have is legal. You may think, I have nothing to do with legal. Yes, you do. If it wasn't for the legal systems, you probably wouldn't have a job in the financial sector. You need to understand that, okay? You will get no lawyer jokes from me. I respect lawyers a lot. Lawyers are very, and especially regulators. Many of my ex-students are regulators. And some of you may become regulators because you may have to write law. There was a case of a regulation passed in 1991, very famous. We'll talk about that in a few weeks. It was called the Basel I. It was part of the Basel Treaty. And in that law, banks were required to post collateral with the central banks based on a quantile of a distribution called value at risk. We'll see it. You have to understand how significant that is. If you have the quantile of a distribution as part of the law, how many people out there do you think know what a quantile is? Do you know what a quantile is? I'm scared now. You know what a quantile is, yes? You've seen the cumulative distribution function and the inverse and all of that. So what the quantiles are. And by the way, that opened the jobs for many, many mathematicians because someone had to implement that. Of course, some of the mathematicians became regulators because their regulation didn't get any simpler after that, right? So that's another room for you. Payment systems, the big risk they have is fraud. How can you help there? Again, you mentioned that in detecting fraud. Fraud detection systems are becoming very quickly artificial intelligence driven. They follow patterns if this doesn't look right. And you don't have to be right. You just need to flag something and then maybe a human can follow through, right? So if you look at the risks here, you should be able to understand that, first of all, there's a future for a lot of you in these industries. And second, that future looks remarkably consistent across the different business lines. It's all data analysis now. It's all becoming very quickly data analysis, machine learning and all of that. Of course, in about half an hour, I'm going to start writing formulas and algorithms and this and that. The things that were relevant many years ago, decades ago. Yes, I have to do that because I have to start there. But I want you to know that where you're going with this is a whole different world, where data is driving the business, the profitability, the risks, and they need people who can steer those businesses, and that's where you fit in. Is that clear? So to the extent that I can, I will try to steer this course in that direction. To the extent that I can, okay? Now, this is now perhaps a good moment to stop this and then answer your question, right? About the CFA versus the FIT. And I'm not going to do the switch on Zoom. Again, there's no one on Zoom. I'm only doing this for gymnastics today. But I'm going to go to Chrome, and I'm going to go to FIT. So this is the web page. Yeah, so this is the certificate. By the way, the certificate is given by the Fields Institute. You know the Fields Institute? It's right there on College 222. That's where I'm going right after class, by the way. Okay. And well, you can see some of that. You can see some of the people who teach there. You can see some of our sponsors. The sponsors is interesting. Well, the faculty is interesting too, but I'm more interested in that. These are some of the sponsors we have. So the Fields Institute, of course you know them, right? Allianz, who knows Allianz? What do they do?
Invest money.
It's an insurance company, except in our case, it's Allianz Global Investors. So an insurance company has the insurance arm, and then I mentioned they have to manage money, right? So it's the asset management arm of the insurance company. It's called Allianz Global Investors. It's about $1 trillion company. Trillion with a T. Rather big. Okay. MEAG is a part of Munich Re. It's a reinsurance company. It's the asset management arm of Munich Re. So these are the asset management companies. Of course, they need these kinds of things I just told you, right? Because in the way you manage money now, technology, machine learning, artificial technology, all of these things are becoming more and more relevant. So this is what we're trying to address with this certificate. That's what you were asking, right? If the CFA is a great program, and I had to hire CFAs. You still need a CFA for certain jobs in Canada. Okay, our view is that in the future that will not be required. The knowledge of how to deal with technology objects is going to be more important than some of these more traditional financial analyst processes that we have from the 60s. The CFA is from the 60s. It's 1963, right? And this is from 2023. That's many years, 70 years difference.
I thought this program is designed for the postgraduates.
It's for what?
It's for the postgraduates.
Postgraduate? Yeah. Not really. Not really. The CFA is not. Who's studying for the CFA, or who's considering the CFA? You are, many of you are, right? So people usually start getting interested in the CFA at about, when they're about to graduate. Here we're following the same pattern with one difference, which are there's a lot of demand for employees in these companies to learn this stuff, right? Because they didn't have a chance 10 years ago. The CFA was there 10 years ago. So if you were interested 10 years ago, you could have done the CFA. But the FIT, no, it's new. So we have now the big wave that's coming at the end of this month is mostly employees who are a bit older than you, but they still want to catch that wave. Okay, and that's, so did I answer your question?
Yes.
Okay, good. And then, so as you can see, things are changing very much towards data analysis, machine learning. And from that perspective, these business lines, banking, insurance, asset management, they don't look so different. They don't look so different. Some of the problems are very similar, right? That's what we thought we could do. The CFA is focused on the asset management industry only, no banking, and North America only. There's a lot of regulation about that. Our view was that if you're trying to do the new wave, borders will not exist, both geographical, country to country, or business line to business line. Some of the issues are the same. So that's what we saw there's an opportunity to do that. Okay. So that's why we did it. Okay. All right. So I'm going to go back to all right. And by the way, I have some headline cases that help understand what's happening here. So for banking, what's the biggest issue for the biggest event? I think the biggest event recorded about banking is the Lehman Brothers default of 2008. You're very young back then, right? So many of you may not know, but you should know history, and the Lehman case is something that you should know. Okay, I may talk about it a little bit later in this course, but that's the system that almost broke the financial system as we know it. September 14, 2008. Okay? Interesting, insurance, the biggest event in insurance was AIG. You know what AIG is? AIG is the American Insurance Group. It's the company that no one knew, but they had been selling insurance on, anybody has a guess? They had sold insurance, a lot of insurance premium, on the bankruptcy of Lehman Brothers. So when Lehman Brothers went bankrupt, everybody thought they were safe because they had bought protection against the bankruptcy. But then on September 15, we realized that that protection was sold by the same insurance company, AIG, who then had a shortfall of $85 billion. And what happened? That was a Monday. On the Monday, US Congress had to pass a law giving $85 billion to Hank Paulson to rescue AIG. Why? What would happen if AIG went bankrupt on that Monday? The suspicion was that Morgan Stanley and Goldman Sachs would go after. So the domino effect had to be stopped. And then it became clear that it would have been cheaper to rescue Lehman Brothers to actually then rescue AIG. This is called systemic risk and was basically invented on September 14, 2008, right? What's the challenge in creating a systemic risk framework that works? Data. Who would know that AIG was selling insurance on Lehman Brothers, right? And then who would know who the counterparties to AIG are and what would happen if AIG defaults? This is a huge network graph problem, right? So if you need to hire employees to manage this, what kind of skill sets do they need to have? Yours. Again, right? Have these, all central banks, after this, they passed resolutions demanding that a database would be built so that you know who owes money to whom and what would happen, and detect these weak links in the systemic risk graph. Do you think any country has done it? Only one country managed to do it. You want to guess? Brazil. I have no idea why. You're asking for too much data. This data is, so building data systems is very difficult. It's very difficult. One thing is to take a data science course and the other is to go and build one. Building one is very difficult, right? But extremely worthwhile. You need to have it, because without it, everything becomes very brittle. Everything can break. And now that's another analogy with the default risk that banks have when they give you loans. So you need to understand this is the type of new financial professional which are being in demand right now. You see? So when in a few weeks I spend some time talking about derivative pricing and all of that, you have to take that with a grain of salt. I'm doing history. Okay? I'm doing history. No longer think that because you know the Black-Scholes theory, you can get a job. That was 20 years ago. Things are slightly different now. I still want you to know it, because without it, you may not get a job, but with it, you won't get a job either. You see what I mean? There's other things you need to know. You need to have more modern understanding of the financial sector. And that's why I'll teach the course that I'll teach. Is that clear? Everybody understands? Okay, so this course may not be what you expected it to be. And it's not my intention to give you what you expected. I don't care what you expected. Okay? I think I know what would be good for you, and that's what I'm going to do. So talking about history, I'm not sure if you know this, but have you heard of Hammurabi? Hammurabi? Yes, yes. What did this guy do? Huh? Well, yes, he did a lot of things. He invented the insurance sector. Okay? The first insurance contract is written in the Code of Hammurabi. Well, maybe he didn't invent it. Maybe he just codified it. Maybe someone else did. All right? That was a long time ago. Thousands of years we've been going with that model. And now I'm telling you it's about to change. Well, sure, some things will change, but maybe some things will not change. Here's another example. Talking about history, is the first recorded options trade. And it was done by Thales. In English, you may call it Thales. In Greek, they call it Thales. This is the mathematician that has this theorem that you have two parallel lines and you cross with another one, the angles are the same. Apparently, he was a very smart person. And he was walking one day and he saw that the olive trees, it was from Greece, lots of olive trees. He saw the olive trees had a lot of olives. What did he do? He said, well, there's a lot of olives. At harvest time, they will all have to use the olive mill to make olive oil. So what he did is he bought the right to use the olive mill. He paid money to the miller to exercise the option at some point in the future to use it. So when the olives went to the mill, he said, now I'm going to exercise my option. The mill is mine for a day. And then he collected all the premium. Why am I telling you this? Innovation is always there. Has been there for a long time. Was there with Hammurabi almost 4,000 years ago, and was there with Thales. Innovation is where the big opportunities are created, and that's what I want you to be aware of. In this course, I will be almost obsessed with the innovation opportunities that are being created, because guess what? No one is applying for those jobs. Okay. Footnote. Which are the jobs that are the biggest opportunity for you from an innovation perspective right now? ESG. Is there who teaches ESG at U of T? Have you seen a course on ESG at U of T? No? 10 years ago, do you know anybody who knew ESG? No? So who knows ESG out there in the world? KPMG has announced they're going to hire 100,000 people who are ESG experts. Who are those? Where are these 100,000 experts on ESG? They don't exist. Universities have not created them. So I'll create a few here in this class in a few weeks. But you have to know. You have no competition. Okay? CIBC is hiring ESG analysts. Maybe you're a bit too young, but well, give it a couple of years. Okay? So again, this is how innovation happens. It becomes a story, but another example of innovation. This is the first recorded example of a futures market. the first futures market. You know what a futures market is? I'll explain this in detail next week, but you know what a futures market is, right? You agree to buy something at a later time and you fix the price now. Well, the first example of that was Osaka in the 17th century for rice. Rice futures were done there. Okay. What's the difference between the futures and a forward contract? You know a forward contract, maybe? Okay. So a forward contract is when I agree to buy something from you in the future and we agree on the price. The difference between a forward and a future is that a forward I can do with you. If I default, you're in trouble. A futures market is when I agree to buy, but not from you, but through the exchange. So you're protected. The exchange will remove the default risk from the transaction. Bilateral transactions existed for a long time. I agree to buy from you, right? But then if the price is cheaper than what I agreed to buy from you, maybe I try to find ways to not buy from you, buy from the market. And that's the risk in a forward transaction. But in a futures transaction, we both go to the same market, and the market makes sure that we transact. And if for whatever reason I fail or you fail, they take that risk. Okay? That was the 17th century. Rice. The price of rice was, apparently in Japan, was a big deal. And they found a way to remove the risk from the price. But then after that, there was a city who realized that they could do the same, going beyond rice and dealing with all other cereal. That was Chicago. Chicago was a nothing city before this. Like Winnipeg was a bigger city than Chicago. But what did Winnipeg do? They traded wheat, physical wheat, right? Until Chicago realized you can trade paper wheat. What's the difference between paper wheat and physical wheat? Yeah, so the physical wheat, yes, it can go through Winnipeg. But if you do the transaction in Chicago, the money goes to Chicago. The wheat goes to Winnipeg, but the money goes to Chicago. That's why Chicago became such a wealthy city. They had the vision that they could create the cereal exchange. And then, of course, when they went to metals and other things. Futures markets, right? We're talking about the 19th century. No bonds or stocks. There was wheat and rice. Bonds and stocks are very, very new. When was the first bond issued? Do you know? 1850. And that was to expand the railroad in the US to the west. The expansion of the railroad to the west was a very heavy investment. And how did you invest? You're not going to use your money. You had to take someone else's money. So a bond was created for that reason, right? Not just a bond market, a series of bonds. Okay, every time you need to expand the railroad another 100 kilometers or 100 miles, you have to issue bonds. So the bond market is what helped the expansion of the railroad to the west in the United States. How about stocks? They came later, okay? So around the year 1900s. So you see, finance has a very interesting history going back 4,000 years ago. Of course, to today, things are very different today than they were 4,000 years ago. But now what I want to do is, math was not part of that. Math somehow started being part of the equation in the year 1930. Sure, you want to extend the railroad 100 miles to the west, you need $2 million, you issue bonds for $2 million, you build a railroad. Yes. Where's the math there? Not very much. So math became part of the equation around the year 1930. And it started with something very, very simple. It's what people call value investing. You heard of value investing? Okay, value investing. Graham, Dodd, Warren Buffett, value investing. There was a person called Harry Markowitz, 1950. I think he was a graduate student at Stanford. He thought there was something wrong with this. Everybody was looking into, when you do value investing, you look at buying something cheap, right? But then he thought maybe there should be a risk consideration, not just a profitability consideration. He was the first one to introduce the concept of financial risk. No one paid attention. No one paid attention. 20 years later, he got the Nobel Prize for that, okay? But also 20 years later is when computers started to be ubiquitous. And then you could suddenly analyze time series, right? And then you could build models. So a lot of the models that are being used now in the financial sector are because we can analyze time series. Everybody has a computer, and the time series are given to you by vendors like Bloomberg, right? But how old is that? Think as 20-year-olds. How old is that? That's very old, right? The PC, big deal. You have iPhones now, right? And time series, big deal. You have Reddit. No? So what can you build if you have better computers than PCs and better databases than Bloomberg? Do you know what I mean by Reddit? GameStop? Shall we talk about GameStop? Remember GameStop? You're too young? I don't know. Now I have to ask. What happened? Okay, let's do. Yes, GameStop. Who can tell us about GameStop?
The investment bank trying to short the GameStop stocks.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. Okay, what people believe. Yeah, everybody who was on Reddit thinks that. Yes, yes.
And the Reddit people also coming to buy GameStop to fight against the investment bank, and then the price got really high.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, this is very interesting. This is very interesting. Of course, I don't have enough data to tell you what happened. I don't know what happened. I can almost bet money that that investment bank was not shorting. I can almost bet money that that story was made up, but I don't know. I really don't know. Okay, but what I do know is that a few million people colluded to do a trade together. That is true. And that's fantastic. That had never happened before. Right? And this is something which, how can you can have all of the Bloomberg feeds that you want, you will never be able to know that. But if you analyze the Reddit transcript, you will know that's happening. What is that telling you? You know where I'm going with this? Maybe I changed that. Let's use the data that these models use. What was the data that value investing uses? Company accounting information. You can write it with a pencil in a piece of paper. And you need less than a quarter of a page. Right? In fact, most of these people, like Warren Buffett, they do these calculations in their head. They don't need to write anything. Okay? 1930. 1950 gets a bit more challenges. Now you start to have time series, right? What's happening now? What are your data sets now? They're fabulous because you have Bloomberg, but then you have social media, and your databases are no longer databases of numbers. Like Reddit is a database of words, it's textual databases, right?
So that's where natural language comes.
Yes, yes. Natural language processing is the way to analyze the databases which are relevant today. If you want to understand GameStop, you need to have a database which is words. You need to read all of the posts in Reddit in real time and figure out what's going on. Who can do that? No one can do that. A machine can do that. You see? So if you look at the evolution of where we're going, I want you to be aware of this, because through this course, I have to tell you things that happen here, things that happen here, things that happen here. But the important thing is where we're going. Okay? And that sometimes I'll tell you, sometimes I'll just have to invent it because I don't know. But you, 5 years from now, this course will be long gone, you'll get your A, okay? And then what? 5 years from now is when these opportunities will come to you. So you have to be aware of these things. And what I'll give you in this course should position you very well for when that happens. But I won't be there. That's why I need to do it now, okay? Another way to understand history and to see what is coming is to look at what are called 100 years of failures. What broke? So we started in 1929, the famous crash. There was the run on the bank that you mentioned, right? That happened, yes. What was the result of that? Do you know something else that happened in 1929? That's very interesting. The CEO of a bank, it was the Manhattan Bank, it doesn't matter. The CEO of the bank saw that things were very bad and shorted all of the stock of the bank. He made like $4 million in 1929, shorting the stock of his own bank. Is that legal now? It's not legal now. It's called insider trading. Was it legal in 1929? Yes, it was. It was not regulated, right? So one thing that the 1929 crash did is created regulation in the 1933 Advisors Act that, amongst other things, prevented insider trading. Okay? So accidents always create new things. My favorite is the 1987 crash. One day, the S&P 500 dropped 25% in one day. It recovered in a week, by the way. There was an investigation, and apparently it was computerized trading that caused it. Big deal. Nothing in car. But many companies went belly up. 25% in a day is a lot. We haven't seen that since then. That created new regulation. BIS, the Basel regulation that all banks had to have in place by January 1st, 1998. By the way, this is where most of the jobs asking for mathematicians in the banks were created because of that event. Cause and effect. Okay? But there were other things. During the oil crisis, okay, the big oil crisis, not what we have now, the big oil crisis, that was the US-Iran embargo. We had about 6 bank failures per year in the United States. Tremendous volatility. Tremendous volatility. What was the result of that? Hedge funds were created. Usually you have a crisis and then something is created as a result of that, either regulation, in this case hedge funds. September 11, that created a mini recession in the United States, which led to the Enron debacle about a year later. What did Enron do? It changed regulation, and now listing a stock is much more complicated than it used to be. Right? So it's good to understand all of these things. 2008 and structured credit. So I want you to be aware that there's a correlation. It's actually not a correlation, it's a cause and effect between events and regulation. And new regulation is a wonderful way for new jobs to be created. So we have the example of the 1929 crash and the Securities Act of 1933, which governs still today all of the asset management in the world. And the Ontario Teachers' Pension Plan and the Canada Pension Plan, and they still have to go in agreement with the Advisors Act in the US of 1933. Okay? Enron created the Sarbanes-Oxley
regulation of 2002. The 2008 financial crisis created the Dodd-Frank. I'm not sure if you know about Dodd-Frank. Trump did his best to repeal most of it. And that was basically this is very relevant because it's the regulation that, amongst other things, what it did is it prevented banks from having their prop desks that we talked about earlier. Why did Dodd-Frank prevent banks from having their prop desks? Because they saw in 2008 that Goldman Sachs, for example, were using their money to bet against the interest of their clients. Not exactly like what the CEO of the Manhattan Bank did in 1929 that shorted their own stock. That's illegal, they can't do that. But it's the bank's money, so you could trade against one of your clients. Why? Because you think the client's taking the wrong side of a bet, right? And then your client needs a buyer, so I'll be the buyer. Or the seller, depends on it. You understand what I'm saying? So this has an impact. To MMF, many students come thinking they want to be traders. How many traders do you think there are in the banks now? Where are the traders? If you're going to have a trading job, where do you go? Hedge funds, yes, there's a few jobs there.
Market.
Yeah, okay, market making where? So a market, this is a very interesting answer. Okay, first let me give the answer I was hoping to get, and then I'll answer you. A pension plan. Why? Because they have big pools of money. Teacher has 200 billion, CPP has 500 billion, and they have to trade that money. That's where the traders are now. They're not a bank. Therefore, they're not regulated by Dodd-Frank. Therefore, they can have their prop desk. In fact, that's all they have. They only have prop desks because all the money is their money. It's not someone else's money. It's their money, right? Sorry, what did you answer? I already forgot. Market making, yeah. What is market making?
You make the market makers set bid and ask, you show us market.
Well, see, a market maker is typical what a broker would do, right? A broker sits in the middle. Brokers still exist. Lehman Brothers was a broker, okay? So market making is something different because you create a market, meaning you have a buyer and you're looking for a seller. Okay, and ideally, the best market making you can do, there's a buyer and a seller, and you trade one against the other and you collect the difference, not yours, right? Banks do that, brokers do that, and brokers are banks, okay? So yeah, that profession is still there. But guess what? I would bet money that all the market making will be done by machines very soon. Why not? What's the human in that? You just need information. Who wants what? Right? Once you know who wants what, then you can trade that. Right? Let me continue, and then I'll tell you one interesting. So there's one event that I'm waiting for that will create data regulation. We don't have it yet, but there will be an event coming. COVID-19, we don't know what that's going to cause in the markets, but typically there's a crisis, there's an effect. We don't know. We may not see it because there's a bigger one coming, climate risk. This is a bigger one, and we'll probably see the regulation response to that will probably take COVID into account. We don't know, okay? I should tell you that Solvency II is the regulatory framework for insurance companies in Europe. Solvency II already is addressing this. And insurance companies with a very high ESG score, they need to tell the regulator what they're going to do to lower it. Okay, it's just the beginning. But we're beginning to see many of them. I told you about ESG jobs, right? In Europe, there's a lot of them because every insurance company is now regulated by Solvency II, that's the framework name, and they need people to be able to do things like that. So this is where things are. This is where things are going. Okay, so
Now, I'm good. Okay. So in this context, there's one thing that hasn't changed, and that is the way trades happen. And I have an example here. I'm going to try to explain how trades happen. Look at the example on your left. Okay? I give you a choice. You can take choice A, which I give you $900 for sure, or I can let you gamble, which is I give you $1,000 with a probability of 90% or $0 with a probability of 10%. Let's do a show of hands. Who would take choice A? Who would take choice B? Okay, just because you're the contrarian, you have a rule. Okay, you have a place for you in the financial sector. We'll call you the contrarian. Okay, so what's your name?
Sinner. You can call me Cheryl.
Cheryl. Okay, I'll try to remember you. You're the contrarian. Okay, good. Let me go here. It's the same game. Every mathematician will tell you it's the same game. Okay, so one is you're going to lose $900 for sure, but in the other one I give you a chance of losing $1,000 with a probability of 90% or nothing with a probability of 10%. Who chooses A? Cheryl, you're not choosing A? Okay, that's okay. Who chooses B? Who chooses B? Okay, who can explain that to me? Who can explain this to me?
If someone is risk averse.
Okay, you mentioned the word risk aversion, right? Which is, yeah, of course, this is what this is all about, but this is certain asymmetry in the way we think, right? That's what this points to. It's very hard to explain this except using psychology, which, by the way, I will do in the last day of classes, okay, in a different context, all right? but you understand, this is kind of interesting, no? It seems that you're all on different sides of this equation, right? Okay, so this is part of a very big field called behavioral finance. I'm not going to talk about it in this class. This is all I want to say about it. But this is the interesting part. If you all think like that, okay, then why can't we do a trade? So the right and the left are really opposites to each other, right? Why don't we do a trade? This is how trades happen. So a lot of trades are driven by sentiment. I could now link this to GameStop, right? What caused GameStop? That was sentiment, right? You said it. Why did 1 million people decide to do the same thing? Why? Was it because of the famous gamma squeeze? You know what the gamma squeeze is? You didn't follow that story? GameStop? You were too young, no? I was teaching that class on Monday, the Monday before the big blow up. And at the beginning of class, it was the end of January, and someone in the class asked me, what's a gamma squeeze? That's how that class started that day. I already knew because I followed. I said, there's no such thing as a gamma squeeze. It was a made-up term in Reddit, okay, to explain something that was going to happen, but it didn't happen. Okay, everybody was following that story, right? So this is how these things can be created, and this is in our nature. This is what we do, right? Okay, so this is how trade happens. But the thing is, there's a difference between trading and financial instruments. Sorry, this thing. Okay, half an hour. I want you to tell the difference between trading, which is not really that interesting anymore, unless you're a machine, okay? And you have tremendous amount of data, like, for example, Reddit in real time, okay? Then it's interesting. Let me talk about financial markets, because financial markets are still different, and they will probably continue to be different for a while. And let me address this. Everybody needs money. Everybody needs money. You need money, I need money. The government of Canada needs money. Okay? The Bank of Nova Scotia needs money. Everybody needs money. how can you raise money? All of financial markets are there to organize people having access to money. Why do stocks exist? Why do stocks exist?
To raise money for the company.
Exactly. You need money. You have a bright idea. You're going to create this company called Facebook, right? No, this company called the Facebook, right? And then you say, well, I need money because otherwise I can't bring my idea to the market. Then how do you raise money? You say, well, give me money, right? All right. So companies need money. Facebook, others needed money at some point. So let me ask a question. Imagine you're a company. You already exist as a company, okay? And you need money. What is the first thing you try to do as a company to raise money?
I think I will try the equity first.
I will use the company equity to raise
The
money.
company equity, that's what you would do. You would issue equity, yes? Okay, good.
Internal funds. With internal funds.
No. If you have internal funds, then you don't need money. You have it, okay? But if you need more money, if you need to raise money, what would you do? Debt. You would do debt, you would do equity, right? Cheryl, what would you do?
That.
You do debt. Always use someone else's money, okay? Equity is your equity. You don't give it up, okay? So always try to get someone else's money. So you raise money by issuing bonds. That's what bonds are. Yes? Bond, what is a bond? It's a promise to pay. I need money, give me money, I'll pay you later. When? Later. Later. Okay? All right. What if that doesn't work? What do? Equity. Well, then I give you, I let you come into my house, and then I give you, 50% of my great idea, and then you give me the money, and then we grow together. Yes? Great. So bonds were created when the railroad was expanding to the west, using someone else's money to build your railroad. When that doesn't work, for whatever the reason, what do? You have to give them a piece of the company. That's the stock. And that happened later. That happened in the 20s, 1920s, right? 70 years later. Now, what if that does not work either? And the case was in the 1970s. There was a company called MCI. You may not know MCI. Maybe it doesn't ring a bell. It was the first contender to AT&T in the US. The first company to try to take a slice of the telephone business in the United States away from AT&T, MCI Communications. They needed money. It was in the 70s. Try to raise money? No way. Those markets can't do it. Equity, you're too risky. I'll give you very little money. You won't raise enough. What did they do? They did something very smart. And this is what I want you to think. This is corporate finance, okay? This is what I want you to think. Why do bonds work? Bonds work, is written here, because if what you try to do doesn't work, you have to adopt the point of view of the person in front of you or the person you're trading with, right? I try to borrow money from you, you say no. I try to give you stock, you say no. Then I have to give you something which is better than bonds or stocks. So what's the good thing about a bond? The good thing about a bond is safety, right? What's the good thing about a stock? Upside. So what I have to do is I have to create an instrument. We're talking about financial innovation in the 1970s, okay? So we have to create an instrument that gives you the upside of a stock and the safety of a bond. The name is a convertible bond, and it works as follows. I'm showing this to you as an example of innovation. I borrow money from you, so you have the safety of a bond. But if my company does very well, I let you change the bond for stock. Your choice. See, a stock is the investor who is at the end. When there's money to be collected, the bond investors are first. You owe money, the bond investors take it. The stock investors are at the end. If there is bankruptcy, for example, they don't get anything.
But if there's no bankruptcy, they collect everything. They have all the upside, right? So the idea here is you create an instrument, it's called a convertible bond, so that you allow the bondholder, who is at the beginning of the line, to go to the end and say, no, I'll collect everything that's left. I become a shareholder for free. See what I mean? And this happened in the 70s. This is convertible bonds. So it's actually a derivative. It's an example of a derivative. We'll see more, all right? So this was financial innovation in the 70s. And this thing continues to exist. And it is part of the system that still is there and it still is working. And this is the system in which you will get a job, okay? All right, so what I want to do now is I want to start, I'll finish this next week, but I want to discuss the business aspects of this, which is the theory of interest rates. You may have seen interest rates at some point in your life. And you may have heard this statement that time is money. What we're going to try to determine is how much money really time is worth. That's what, and this is the way you price bonds. So we're doing things which belong to the 1850s, okay? More than 150 years ago. Still, today, finance is built on that, so we have to understand these things. We need to understand these things very well. That's why I'm doing this. Okay, so I'm going to give you some theory. I'll try to finish that in, what time is it? Maybe in 10 minutes, 15 minutes, okay? And then what I'm doing next week is I'm developing the theory of interest rates. So I'll start from scratch, but then I'll be a mathematician. Next week, I will be a mathematician. I'm not a mathematician now. I'm just going to be a smart person. Okay? All right. So, and now I'm going to assume that I am the government of Canada. I need money. The government of Canada needs money. Okay? So I'm going to adopt that point of view, that I need money, and how am I going to do it? So, for that, I like to use this. You don't know what this is. Has anybody of you ever bought a newspaper in paper? Have you ever bought a newspaper? You bought a newspaper in paper? You too? Okay. When I used to teach this class like 20 years ago, today I brought newspapers for everybody on paper. And then I told everybody to go to page something to see this. Okay, I always teach on Mondays, and this is the page that only appears on Mondays in the newspaper. The reason is that on Mondays, newspapers didn't have stock prices to print because Sunday there was no stock activity. So it's the one day where they give you bond prices. Only Mondays, right? Was good. I teach on Mondays. Perfect. Okay. And then you had a list like that of all the Bank of Canada bond prices, and Bell Canada, and TransAlta, Bank of Nova Scotia. All of the bond prices were here. Now you don't have to go to the newspaper. On the website, you have a link to a website where all of these things are listed. But let me walk through what's there. So in a column like that, what you have here is the issuer, who is borrowing money. Government of Canada, Bank of Canada. Oh, good. Coupon payment. Where's the coupon payment? You know what the coupon payment is? That's how much money they give you per year. They pay you twice a year. So, for example, if this coupon payment is $7, that means that every 6 months they give you $3.50. Until when? Until the maturity date. Excuse me. Until the maturity date. The maturity date is here. This is from a newspaper. It was, I think, 2003. So in the December 1st, 2006, they will give you $100 plus $3.50. Okay? Understand? Maturity date. And then the bond, at that point, you borrow $100, you get the $100 back, plus the coupon payment. Okay. Price. What's the price? The price is essentially how much you pay for that, with a footnote they'll tell you in a few minutes. Okay? That's it. That's how a bond transaction works. So according to this, if I'm the government of Canada, I give you a bond, which is a promise to pay a piece of paper. Sir, here's your bond. And they say, sure, here's your $109.58. That's how it works. Understand what I'm saying? That's how financial markets work for bonds. Okay. So there's a footnote, okay? You have to pay more than this, but I'll tell you exactly how much a little bit later. I'm not interested in that now. This is the column I want to focus on because it says here yield. You know what that is? You know what yield is? Huh?
Is that rate of return?
Rate of return. See, it could be. Maybe it's the rate of return. See, the problem with those words is they are English words, right? Rate of return. Now we're getting to be very, very specific. So I need to know exactly what you mean by a rate of return. Yes, it is some sort of rate of return. But what I want to say is this is the most important thing. This thing is real. It's an entity called Government of Canada or Bank of Canada. This is real. Every 6 months you get $3.50. This is real. On that day you get $100 and some coupon payment. It's real. That's real. That's the money you pay me. It's real. This is not real. This is the thing I want you to be aware of. This is not real. This is a mathematical construct. This is a human construct. Humans made it up. The financial markets don't need this. I give you your paper, you give me your money. You understand? This is the most important thing that I want you to learn today. This thing is made up. This course is going to be full of made up things. Some things are real, some things are made up. The made up things is what makes this course interesting. But you always have to distinguish between the real and the made up. Yeah? An apple falls from the tree. Is that real? Apple, tree, ground? Yes, real. Gravity, 9.81. Is that real? No, it's made up. Why? Because Newton wrote a formula and there's a constant there and this constant has to be 9.81. You see what I mean? We're going to distinguish between constructs and things which are real. You can say, no, the gravity is real. Of course it's real. That's not what I meant. Now, my English has to be very precise. We're going to distinguish between something we create to help us understand things and other things. The law of gravity is very good. It's been very, very useful and it managed to send people to the moon. Yeah? This thing is useless. It's perfectly well defined. We're going to see it, but it's useless. And I want you to understand that. Okay? It's a perfectly made up thing, but it's useless. In fact, you can make a lot of mistakes if you use it when you shouldn't. And one thing that I have to tell you, you're mathematicians, most of you, or you have, math is your superpower. And the best thing you can do with math is detect bullshit. Okay? Math is the best bullshit detector out there. It's fantastic. It's fantastic. And today should be the first example of that. All right? So let me walk through this. I'm not going to go into the bid-ask spread. I'm not interested in that. Let me tell you, first of all, what we actually pay. Because what we pay, see, this price which is listed there, I'm finishing my footnote. This is not what we pay. You pay a little bit more. That is called the dirty price. Sorry, that's called the clean price, but it's a dirty price. It's like when you buy a t-shirt, it's $19.99 and then you have to pay HST. It's like that, right? Oh no, that's a different, that's extra. So there's something extra when you buy a bond, and it's the accrued interest on the coupon payments. And just follow that formula, right? When you buy a bond, you have to pay that price plus this. The annual coupon rate divided by 365 times the number of days since the last coupon payment. Why? Because this is income and the other one was capital gains. There's a tax reason why. That's why it's done differently, okay? And I'll say no more about this. I'll say no more. I'm not interested in that. So there's a thing called the clean price. It's clean because it's clean. And there's a one which is dirty, which mixes two different tax components. But it's the real one is what you actually pay. It's like the t-shirt plus HST. It's dirty because you're mixing the price of the t-shirt plus the money that goes to the government. It's what goes to Roots Canada and what goes to Government of Canada, right? You mix it together, you call it dirty. Yeah? Understand the analogy? Okay, good. So never mind. That's what you add to the price, and that's the total price, and that is the dirty price. And the way that yield is calculated is as a result of this equation that we have here. So this equation that we have here defines the yield implicitly as the solution to that equation. That's the definition of yield. It's a perfectly good definition. You look at that, this as a function of R is monotone, it's increasing, there's a single solution to the equation, the solution exists and is unique. No problem, that's it. Yeah? But it's useless. Why is it useless? Who can tell me what's really bad about this? It depends on the bond. A different bond will have a different yield, right? So what's the big deal? If the yield depends on the bond, it's useless because I give you a new bond and you don't know what the yield is, right? Wouldn't it be nice, now I'm thinking about the world of possibility, wouldn't it be nice if I did a yield that does not depend on the bond, that depends on time? If we do that, bear with me, everything becomes far more interesting. This is just a list of bond prices. You have it on the website. Okay? So, first I'm going to remind you, because you already know this, I'm going to remind you what compounding is. You have compounding here. You saw compounding, yes? Anybody had not seen compounding before? In the first text here, what we have is compounding, annual compounding, compounding per year. This is compounding n times a year. And there'll be instantaneous compounding, which is the limit when n goes to infinity of this one, gives you that. You've all seen this? Yeah, it's calculus, you saw this, right? Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use instantaneous compounding because it's easier to deal with. You see, we're becoming mathematicians, and this really belongs in next week's class, okay? But we're becoming mathematicians. I'm going to look at instantaneous compounding. It's a matter of definition, and that is going to be no loss of generality. And I'm going to think this. Imagine I have a bond that has no coupon payments. If a bond has no coupon payments, then the yield that I defined earlier is perfectly good. It's perfectly good. The yield depends on the bond, but really the bond depends on time. There's a one-to-one correspondence between bonds and time if there are no coupon payments, right? So these bonds that have no coupon payments are called zero coupon bonds. They have a price. They have a notional. The notional is the $100 that are given to you, right? So if you take the logarithm of the ratio and divide by time, that is called the yield. This has the property that the price is the notional times this times t. Perfect. Okay? But this works only for zero coupon bonds. This works only for zero coupon bonds. For zero coupon bonds, we do have a mapping which is one-to-one between a bond and time. Okay? How many bonds do we have that have zero coupons? Real bonds, very few. A coupon payment happens after 6 months. So it's only the bonds that mature between now and June that are zero coupon bonds. So I can calculate all these yields for all the bonds between now and June because they have no coupon payment. The problem is that when I get a coupon payment in July, now what do I do? So what I do is this. This is what I would like. Look at this. I would like to have the value of the bond now, and this is the dirty one, okay? I would like the value of my bond now to be the discounted value of the future payments, and discounted with this. It's a yield which is a function of time. not a function of the bond. All bonds will have exactly the same yield as a function of time. It's a curve. I'm changing the equation. I'm changing, in fact, the variable of which yield is a function of. And what I'm looking for is I'm looking for a curve like that. R, this is time, this is R of time. I'm looking for a curve that will price all bonds at the same time. That's not the yield in the newspaper. The yield in the newspaper changes from one bond to the other, right? So it's a function of bond, not a function of time. That's what I want. This is the construct I'm looking for. This is the made-up thing I'm looking for. Okay? The answer is yes, this exists. Yes, it's unique, blah, 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 all of that. Okay? And not only that, we even have a pretty good idea how to calculate it. This is what I will be doing next week. But this is how you go about doing this. I'll do this again next week, because then next week we will be acting as mathematicians only. Today we wear, I don't know what we wear. Not business people either, somewhere in the middle. Okay? But granted that this expression is good, this expression is good when I have no coupon payments. When I have coupon payments, say one coupon payment, I have to solve that. I have two payments, the coupon and the final payment, and I need to find my functions here. But because they are a function of time and they work for all bonds, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get all my bonds and I want to solve the system of equations, because these unknowns are the same for all of my equations. So what I have here is I have infinitely many bonds. I have my unknown, which is a curve with infinitely many unknowns. I have an infinite system with infinitely many bonds and infinitely many unknowns. So you solve that, big deal. You're mathematicians, we know how to do that. They are nonlinear systems of equations. In practice, we don't have infinitely many bonds, and we're not looking for infinitely many values in a curve. The curve will be discretized, and we have maybe only 20 bonds to solve. So we have a system of 20 by 20, and we solve it. And that will be the answer we're looking for. You see? And that will be useful because we get a function which is a function of time. And what the newspaper uses is a function of the bond, and that's useless, I'm telling you. You cannot use that for trading, for example. You'll end up under or overpricing. You will never know what you're doing. But this, you can use to calculate the right price for something. This we'll do next week. By the way, you can do this on your own, okay? If you want now, you can read the assignment number 1, because in assignment number 1, that's what you have to do. You have to solve the systems of equations. Okay? And someone asked me that about the assignment number 1. I said, you have to write it with computer code. You're no longer allowed to do this with a calculator. Years ago, I allowed people to do this with a calculator. You can do it with a calculator with a lot of punching. I don't allow that anymore. You have to do it with computer programming. Okay? If you don't know programming, sorry, you have to learn it. Okay? There are 2 languages which are required in this course: English and programming. Anybody does not know any programming? Maybe next week I'll tell you the difference between coding and programming. They are different things. Okay? This is not at the category of programming, it's just coding. Okay? But anybody does not know coding?
I wanted to ask, is there a language you prefer?
I don't care. I don't care. Pascal, I don't care. COBOL even, I don't care. But yeah, use a computer. Yeah, you have to. Okay, so ClanSense now, and this is where we will retake it next week. But next week, we will build a model. And we'll build, this is very important, we'll build a useful model, not a useless one. The useless one is very simple, it's here. I mean, you don't, that's easy, you don't need anything for that. Calculus, maybe, that's it. But that's useless, we don't want that. We want useful, right? The useful one we'll have to do next week. Okay? And then we'll start to get into what mathematicians do here, which is, don't forget the business, but then use the right math. Okay? You can't get either of them wrong. You cannot get the business wrong, you can't get the math wrong. Okay, welcome to the course. I'll see you next week.